I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus, as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had at least not be as lived to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. I was born free as Caesar, so are you. We have both fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. But once, upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with her shores, Caesar said to me, "There, thou Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood, and swim to yonder point." Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, "Help me, Cassius, or I sink!" I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy, upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear. So from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man has now become a god. And Cassius is a wretched creature, and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly, but not on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain. And when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. And that same eye, whose bend off all the world, it did lose its luster. I did hear him groan. Aye, and that tongue of his that bade the Romans mock him and write the speeches in their books, alas, it cried, "Bring me some drink, Titinius," as a sick girl. Ye gods, it doth amaze me a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Men at some time are masters of the fates. The fault of Brutus is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. Brutus and Caesar. What should be in that Caesar? Why should that name be sounded more than yours? Write them together, it is his fair name. Sound them, it doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them, it is as heavy. Conjure with them. Brutus will stop his spirit as soon as Caesar. Now, in the name of all the gods at once, upon what meat doth this our Caesar feed, that he has grown so great? Age, thou art shamed. Rome, thou hast lost a breed of noble blood. When went there by an age since the great flood, but he was famed with more than with one man? When could they say till now that talked of Rome, that her wide walls encompassed but one man? Now is it Rome indeed, and room enough, when there's in it but one only man? Oh, you and I have heard our father say, there was a Brutus once that would have brooked the eternal devil to keep a state in Rome as easily as a king. That's it.
Okay. Go right into the other. Keep going. Now he convinces Brutus to become one of the assassins. At this stage, they already killed Julius Caesar. There's a mob scene over here. All right, I'm going to use you as the mob. Right, here we go. Mob scene. Angry. Go, whoa, come on.
I can't believe they're doing this. What's going on with this guy?
You believe
Oh my God.
Straight, whoa. You calm the audience. Don't wait for the audience to calm down. You waiting for us. No, while we're... Get rowdy again.
Countrymen and lovers, hear me for my cause, and be silent, that you may hear. Believe me for mine honor, and have respect to mine honor, that you may believe. Censure me in your wisdom, and awake your senses, that you may the better judge. If there be any in this assembly, any dear friend of Caesar, to him I say that Brutus's love to Caesar was no less than his. If then that friend demand why Brutus rose against Caesar, this is my answer. Not that I love Caesar less, but that I love Rome more. Had you rather Caesar were living and die all slaves, than that Caesar were dead to live, all free men. As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. There are tears for his love, joy for his fortune, honor for his valor, and death for his ambition. Who is here so base that would be a bondman? If any, speak, for him I have offended. Who is here so rude that would not be a Roman? If any, speak, for him I have offended. Who is here so vile that will not love his country? If any, speak, for him I have offended. I pause for reply.
None, Brutus, none.
Then none I have offended. I have done no more to Caesar than you shall do to Brutus. The question of his death is enrolled in the Capitol, his glory not extenuated wherein he was worthy, nor his offenses enforced, for which he suffered death. Here comes his body, mourned by Mark Antony, who, though he had no hand in his death, shall receive the benefit of his dying, a place in the commonwealth, as which of you shall not? With this I depart, that as I slew my best lover for the good of Rome, I have the same dagger for myself, when it shall please my country to need my death.
Live, Brutus! Live!
Good countrymen, good countrymen, let me depart alone, and for my sake, stay here with Antony. Do grace to Caesar's corpse, and grace his speech tending to Caesar's glories, for which Mark Antony, by our permission, is allowed to make. I do entreat you not a man depart, save I alone, till Antony have spoke.
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Brutus had a good point, you know? He had a really good point.
Roman, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones, so let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honorable man. So are they all honorable men. Come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffer still. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor hath cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal. I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious. And sure, he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? Oh, judgment! Thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason! Bear with me, for my heart is in the coffin with Caesar, and I must pause to come back to him. But yesterday the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he there, and none so forward to do him reverence.
Oh, masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong, and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I will wrong such honorable men. But here's a parchment with the seal of Caesar. I found it in his closet. 'Tis his will. Let but the commons hear this testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read, and they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds, and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. Ye beg a hair of him for memory, and dying, mention it in the wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto the tissue. If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. It was on a summer's evening in his tent, the day he overcame the Nervi. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made? Through this, the well-beloved Brutus stabbed, and as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it, as rushing out of doors to be resolved. If Brutus so unkindly knocked, or no, for Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all. For when the noble Caesar saw him stabbed, in gratitude, more strong than traitor's arms quite vanquished him, then burst his mighty heart. And in his mantle, muffling up his face, even at the base of Pompey's statue, which all the while ran blood, great Caesar fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen! And I, and you, and all of us fell down. Vilest bloody treason flourished over us. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops. Kind souls, what weep you when you behold of Caesar's vesture wounded? Huh? Look here, here's himself marred as you see with traitors. Good friends, sweet friends, let me not stir you up to such a sudden flood of mutiny. They that have done this deed are honorable. What private griefs they have, alas, I know not that made them do it. They are wise and honorable, and will no reasons answer you. I come not, friends, to steal away your hearts. I am no orator as Brutus is, but as you know me all, a plain blunt man that loved my friend, and that they know full well that gave me public leave to speak of him. For I neither have wit, nor words, nor worth, action, nor utterance, nor power of speech to stir men's blood. I only speak right on. I only tell you that which you yourselves do know. Show you sweet Caesar's wounds, and poor dumb mouths, and bid them speak for me. But were I Brutus, and Brutus Antony, there were an Antony would ruffle up your spirits, and put a tongue in every wound of Caesar, that should ruffle up the stones of Rome to rise in mutiny! The end.
Back over here.
That was from my monologue.
Okay. All right, those were the. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about what you saw. There is a thing called stylistic theater, and it happened at different times, different centuries, different decades. You have, are you guys with me?
I love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I love it. We're here.
You have what they call a French Restoration comedy. It's a period in France where men had ruffles, where they would snuff, that kind of thing. And there's a whole manner of body, etc. Stylistic theater of different periods really needs to be researched and studied. You got to do background work. What happens when you're doing Shakespeare? You're not really doing Rome. What you're doing is Renaissance actors who are portraying a stylistic theater in the period of the 1500s and 1600s, because there was a particular style of movement, etc., that they did with stylistic theater. Shakespeare needs to be studied. What happens very often, I give these guys a lot of credit for tackling vocally the dialogue, etc., trying to get the ideas across and all that. What happens to us, though, as Americans, we tend to slip into kind of contemporary gestures with the body, etc., and I just want you to realize that if we're in a professional production, let's say Shakespeare, Utah Shakespeare Festival, New York Shakespeare in the Park in New York, etc., there is a whole concept with the body when you do Shakespeare. Now, there was so much good about what these guys did. This was a challenge. I love what I call, Michael knows, I've talked to you guys about dangerous actors. Actors who don't play it safe all the time. I like when they go into areas, unknown territory, and experiment. Because even though it doesn't come out perfect, it doesn't truly come out what we'd call the Elizabethan style, grandiose gesture. It's almost like a ballet dancer. But there's so much good comes out of this. Their strength as actors, the ability to dominate. Shakespeare was an incredible mind. He dealt with aristocracy. He dealt with princes, kings, queens, etc. Aristocracy. And you don't do that with a broken body, humped, etc. There's a style, there's a line that you have to find. But that line cannot be robotic. You don't want to be stiff. So you have to know where that is, and you have to study it. And the way when I was training as an actor, we would go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, into that period, that room with these paintings, and we'd look at portraits of different people of that period, the way they sat. And they didn't sit the way we do, because they couldn't, because of the garments, etc. Again, men very often had swords. They had to be careful the way they sat down. There was a way to handle the sword as you sit down, etc. There is this line, women with the corsets couldn't slouch over this kind of thing, right? They had handmaidens who had to tie them into those corsets, etc. There's an awful lot involved, but at the same time, what we saw here, they can only grow with this kind of thing. It's so big, the theater's so big. Sometimes there's this feeling of maybe overdoing a bit. But if you play this down, if you play this conversational, you lose the whole style of theater. You can't. It's big theater. It's big vocally, physically, etc. And therefore I give you guys a hell of a lot of credit. Now let me hear with some of these people. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I really liked what they did, all three of them.
Good.
And
tell me why. Tell me why.
like with the Hamlet thing that I did, you feel nerves you don't normally feel in regular kind of monologues. So I would start to kind of trip and go, shit, catch up or whatever.
Right.
But to do that is crazy. Like what all three of you did with the length of it and what you had to go to put into it and stuff. It was really good though. I really liked what all three of you did. And I like how you set it up all three in a row.
Right.
So we were swayed by one and then swayed by the other. It was good. I really liked it.
I like
especially you in like a week to do that whole monologue, Dustin.
You know how difficult it is.
Have many friends.
It's different when you do a contemporary author, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, Eugene O'Neill. That's difficult in itself to memorize in a period of a week.
Yeah.
But But to tackle Shakespeare, I mean, truly, it's a monumental task sometimes. Because they didn't speak like, this is something you have to understand. Even in Shakespeare's day, they did not speak this way. Let's not forget, this man was a poet. And also, a hell of a lot of his words are archaic. They're no longer in use, whether it be England or any place else. That's another thing. When you study a monologue, you're going to come across all these alien words that you've never seen before. And the idea, good actors, serious actors, they go and they find a place to decipher all of this. I mean, I have a huge book, a dictionary of Shakespeare's words. There's so much in it. That's the reason why you get a lot of young people saying, I don't understand this. This is so boring. And it pisses me off. Because they don't have the energy, the intelligence, they're lazy to tackle something like that. You know, they'd rather go and see some fluffy whatever. I think you know what I'm talking. He's superintendent of a school. I think he knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, guys, I don't want to belabor this to say I'm so proud of all of you for tackling this. I could get picky, and I don't want to do that because this is a new world for you. You guys are experimenting in new territory, and I love it. I know that I spoke to all of you during the week, and there was an excitement about you got the approach, the study, etc. I know you're excited by it, Dustin. And David, I spoke to you, and Jared also. Yeah. Now that's great. But now you get your feet in that world. Don't just let it go. Somewhere along the line, bring something back again. This is big. I would say there are a couple of little things you could have slowed down a bit. Sometimes there was a kind of machine gun kind of thing. You could just take your time with it, relax a little bit with those kinds. I'm trying to think. Anything specific stand out in your mind? Anybody? Is there an opinion out here? Good.
Well, I just want to say something that I was really impressed with because you alluded to it. Is all four of the guys, you could really sense they understood what they were saying, and that's not an easy task, as you stated.
Yeah, you're right.
You got the feeling they really understood exactly what they were saying.
Well, Tim, let me throw something at you. Did you understand it?
Not all of it. No.
Not all, okay. And that's fair. It's okay. This is not something that immediately you listen to it and say, oh, I know what that means. You have to, sometimes repetition is really important as an actor. Repetition in everything. Redundancy. Going back and back to a scene, reading it over, and the same thing with Shakespeare. Really needs an awful... There's a lot of hidden messages that go over your head. Unless you realize, metaphorically, the guy uses a lot of symbols. But they were symbols of that period, 1500s, 1600s. And if you don't understand that kind of metaphor, you don't know what the hell he's trying to say. So it does need to be studied a bit, you know? So, anybody else? Do you have an opinion? Let's see. Okay. Do you have an opinion on X-Man? do you have an opinion?
Phenomenal, John.
Oh, it's fabulous, wasn't it? I tell you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.